Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for giving us the time to share our brief explanations of what's going on with the different programs for COVID-19. For those of you who are not familiar, I am Joe Harper. I am the Executive Director of the Small Business Development Center program that services 12 Central Texas counties in and around Austin. And our program is a technical assistance program that helps businesses launch, reach sustainability, and grow. And we leverage that through mentorship, education, and collaboration. Our current focus, though, is survival. Right now, we're trying to work with our clients and other small businesses that we would like to have as clients to help them develop a survival strategy. Part of that survival strategy includes an approach to capital for sustainability. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, and understanding the compliance for that capital and what your restart strategy might look like as a business. So for that purpose, I wanted to kind of start with the capital for sustainability and just kind of describe them in categories. The first one that we worked with was the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or what's formerly known as EIDL, and its subsequent loan, the advanced loan. That's the $10,000 forgivable piece. The other part we're going to talk about is the Paycheck Protection Program, also known as PPP. And then we're going to talk about the Express Loan, the SBA Express Bridge Loan Program, and the SBA Debt Relief Program. And then there's some things that we want to talk about with community development financial institutions, which are known as CDFIs, and other community gap loan programs that are out there. And a little bit about the Texas Workforce Commission's shared program and existing loan deferment. Now, I'm going to mix that order up a little bit, because what we started to work with our clients with is kind of what we would think of being a better order to focus on, just because of timelines related to each one of the programs. And so I'm going to start with understanding the gap loans. There are a couple of gap loan programs that are out there. The CDFIs programs, Lift Fund, Axion, People Fund, they have worked with, in connection with Goldman Sachs, to create a gap loan program for those people who are waiting on the EIDL or the PPP program, but still need cash or need working capital funds. Then what's happened is communities and these CDFIs have developed gap fund programs to actually fund. It depends between 10,000 all the way up to 60,000, depends on who you're working with, which one of the organizations you're working with. But with the expectation that when you receive the EIDL funds or you receive the PPP funds, that they will actually be taken out. And so that debt would be retired. This is purely just a gap fund, just to keep cash flow in your pocket until you actually get to the bigger programs. The other thing is the existing loan deferments. I wanted to talk a little bit about that, is because if you have not applied for a deferment, if you currently have an SBA loan, whether that's a 7A loan, a 504 loan, or a micro loan, you are eligible to apply for a deferment, but you'll have to go through the bank of record. That was the bank that initiated the loan. You'll have to go through them and request that, and you can get up to 6 months deferment on those payments, which should help with cash flow. And if you have those kind of loans, I would recommend that you go ahead and do that. Now, one of the things that came out of the CARES Act was the debt relief, the SBA debt relief program. And so what that does is the SBA literally pays your principal and interest on an existing SBA loan for 6 months. So if you've asked for a deferment and you've already received that deferment, then when that deferment ends, your debt relief payments will begin. If you haven't applied for a deferment, when the debt relief program, the SBA debt relief program ends, then you will, the deferment can pick up at the end of that. So there is a potential here for you to get almost a year, or I guess it is a year, of deferment on existing loans. And so that would give you some cash flow relief over this time frame. The You would need to check with your bank because this isn't automatic. The SBA automatically started paying your notes through your bank. Your bank, that's the holder of that note, is aware of this and should have already communicated with you. But if in case they haven't, then contact your bank for that. The other thing is the Texas Workforce Commission's shared program. And that's where you can have a little combination of you're paying some of the salary and Texas Workforce Commission gets to pay some of the salary. And what I wanted to talk with there is that you need to be careful here because the Texas Workforce Commission will pay from 10 to 40% of the salary of the employee in unemployment benefits, and you pay the balance. So it's a way of full funding for the employee. But you have to be careful, particularly if you're applying for the PPP program, because that has certain requirements that you have to meet related to payroll and number of employees. So you want to make sure that you're not using one at the detriment of the other. So you'll have to kind of pay close attention to that. The EID advanced loan with forgiveness was the $10,000 loan that has most everyone now that we have a good number of our clients that have been receiving it. And so they're pushing that out. Some additional funds were added to the EIDL program in this last round. Not very much. I think it was about $50 billion, but that was added in there. They're primarily focusing on all of the loans that had already been approved, and then those that are caught up in the queue, and they're going first come, first served basis with relationship to that. So I wanted to make sure that we started there and understand. My indication is that there's not going to be any compliance related issues with the advanced loan, the up to $10,000. That's an automatic forgiveness, and that there's not going to be necessarily any compliance rules that we're going to need to be concerned about when it comes to that. The next loan, though, is the full version of the EIDL loan. And I want to make sure you understand, a couple of things. The uses for that loan is working capital. Now, the difference between this and the Paycheck Protection Program is that Paycheck Protection Program was designed for just that. It's a focus on payroll. They will allow other operating expenses, but this is primarily a payroll loan. Whereas the EIDL loan is all working capital related issues. So you can have both, but they have to be used for different purposes. So if you were going to do payroll, I would focus payroll on Paycheck, and I would focus all of my other expenses on the EIDL project. The other thing is collateral. So there's no collateral on the loans up to $25,000 on the EIDL loan, but above that, they'll take whatever lien position is available to them on anything but real estate. They won't take real estate. And if the loan is under $200,000, you're not required to provide a personal guarantee. On the Paycheck Protection Plan, there are no collateral requirements at all. There's no personal guarantee at all. And so that is an open program. But the forgiveness component is protection. Payroll Protection Plan has a 100% forgiveness component to it, whereas the EIDL loan, there is no forgiveness except for that first $10,000 advanced grant or advanced loan program that they had. Now, where things begin to get a little tough for you is if the EIDL program has they're looking at up to 6 months of operating expenses and for the amount of the loan, and it can't exceed $2 million. So the $2 million cap, it comes with terms of 3.75% interest for businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits. And it has a maturity rate of up to 30 years. So it's a pretty spread out loan with a reasonable interest rate, but it can still only be used for working capital. It can't be used for an expansion, can't be used to refinance existing debt, can only be used for paying for those bills that are reasonable and ordinary that you would have been able to pay with your revenue stream had COVID not occurred. And those payments on the EIDL loan would be deferred up to 12 months. The PPP program, on the other hand, is 2.5 times your average monthly salary or wages that you pay. And there are some restrictions on that, and be happy to go through those as we look at that, because salary, when you start doing that calculation, in fact, Intuit has a really good tool that I would recommend you use, and I think we have that link to our website, so that you can just click on the link and go to the tools and do the calculations on what your loan amount might look like, and the calculations on what the forgiveness might actually look like as well. So there's a couple of great tools there, but and in terms of how to calculate what you're eligible for. The terms on that one, however, is 1%, but it's a 2-year maturity. And yes, it's eligible for forgiveness, but those things, the funds that, if you don't use the funds properly, or you use there are certain conditions, you don't meet the certain conditions related to employment and payroll, then you won't receive that forgiveness piece. You say, well, that's 1% interest for, but the maturity is 2 years, and even at 0% interest with a maturity of 2 years on a loan is definitely going to impact your cash flow. So you want to make sure that you try to remain in compliance with regard to the Paycheck, the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. Those payments are going to be deferred for 6 months. So there's a good chance that you would actually have been awarded the forgiveness before the first payment is actually due. The eligibility for each one is, on the PPP, is all for-profit businesses and some private nonprofits, the 501c3 and the 501c19. On the eligibility for the EIDL is sole proprietors, LLCs, and corporations, small agricultural co-ops, and aquaculture, and private nonprofits. There has been some changes, not related to the EIDL, but related to the PPP, that expands the agricultural community into where it had been previously limited to just the co-ops and the aquaculture. It now is expanded to small farms and that sort of thing. The other principal difference, and it's important, is that the application for the PPP program is made through an approved SBA bank. The application for the EIDL program is made through the SBA at sba.gov/disaster. That is a direct loan program. So where one is a variation of a 7A loan, the other is a direct loan program from the SBA. Now, the SBA Express Bridge Loan Program is a little bit more complicated, and I'll only talk about it a little bit, and it's in the order of how we're presenting as the last one, because not all businesses will be eligible to even apply for the Express Bridge Loan. If you didn't have a prior relationship with an Express lender, an SBA Express lender, then you won't be eligible for this program anyway. But if you did have, and the list of those lenders is on our website, it's also on the website of the SBA. If you did have, this is a loan program that's designed, again, for working capital, that if you were in operation on March the 13th of 2020, you'd be eligible. And it's for the period between March the 25th of 2020 and March the 31st of 2021. The fees for this, there are fees associated with this. It's $250 or 2%, whichever is greater of the loan. It's capped out at $25,000. So here's an opportunity for you to get a gap loan for $25,000 with a 7-year maturity. It is expensive though. No collateral required, but it's expensive in that it's about 6.5% above the prime rate. So it comes with pretty good interest rate. But if that's what your business needs, what we tend to do is just to work with you to identify what is the best alternative for your business specifically as we begin to move forward. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the expectations and some of the things that's happened so that I can put a little perspective on things, and then we're going to talk about next steps. The challenge that all of us that have been trying to support the COVID-19 response has had is a capacity issue. We're gradually building up that capacity. So the SBA is building up, the SBDCs are building up, communities are building up, the banks have been building up that capacity, but it has taken a little bit of time, but our systems were pretty overrun. But let's just look at the scale of what's happened here. The SBA does about $135 billion in loans annually. We've done probably about 4 times that annual volume in less than 45 days. So that is an awful lot of money and loans being pushed out into a system that was only designed to handle about 25% of that. So if you're wondering why it's taking so long to get it through the system, well, this is the problem. Although I have to say it's been remarkable that we've gotten money out as fast as we have. The thing that concerns me, though, is the compliance issue. What's going to be coming next? Anytime that you take access to money from the federal government, whether that's through a government contract or whether that's through a government guaranteed loan, you are always subject to a desk audit. Doesn't mean you will get one, but that means that you're always subject to it. And if they do the desk audit and find out you're not in compliance, there may be some enforcement issues that you're going to have to deal with. So the best thing for you to do is to prepare for that compliance as you begin the process. The compliance issues that I want us to talk about, that the SBDC COVID Business Recovery Accelerator Program is the new program. We just launched it about a week ago. It's being facilitated out of UTSA, and each of the SBDC field centers, including ours, will have a local component of that accelerator so that we can work with businesses on the compliance and on the preparing to reopen process. But just a brief thing about compliance, if you're building the audit trail, then what you want to do is make sure that you have budgeted the use of those funds. Specifically, they're tied to a very specific purpose. You've budgeted that, and make sure that you're documenting that process, because you may be required to show proof of how the funds were used. Even if that means creating some new codes in your chart of accounts or whatever your accounting system will allow, so that you can keep those things separate. But if you've just got a paper trail, you're going to be better than not having one at all. And to prepare a reporting document, how would you actually want to report that information out? So the budget and reporting document. The other piece that we're going to work with is how do we prepare you for reopen? So we want to work with the businesses in the community first by talking about how you're going to begin to communicate with your customers, okay? Because not only is it you need to communicate that you're reopened, but you need to communicate how you're doing business, and you need to communicate the safety aspects of that business so that you're in compliance with the expectations of the customer and the expectations of the community in their guidance. We also talk about rethinking your business, understanding that what you've done in your business in the past may have changed, may have to change. And so we're going to have a conversation about how do you rethink your business? How do you think about how you've done business in the past, how you need to do business going forward? Some of that's going to be the adaptation of technology. Some of that's going to be understanding what type of employee or how many employees, what are you going to really need? Because from this point on, it's all about sustainability. When you reopen the business, it's about sustainability now. We'll talk about growth later on down the road, but when we look at sustainability, we're looking at lean management, we're looking at lean operations, we're looking at supply chain contingencies, because this whole thing has disrupted everything, the full operation of business, from the supply chain all the way through to the consumer. And so do you understand how your supply chains have been impacted? Do you have some contingencies to work through those negative impacts in your supply chain? So we're going to work with you on that. We're going to talk to you about technology integration, how you're going to integrate technology in order for you. Obviously, the biggest change that we've experienced is how we communicate with each other. This very webinar process is new. It's not new in a grander sense, but it's new to us and how we're actually utilizing it. And we want to talk about how to repurpose goods and services. And we want to talk about capital management, understanding now you've got to manage every dollar that comes in and goes out of your business. And you're going to have to do that in a very specific way in order to maintain or sustain your business. And then we want to talk about what alternative opportunities look like, diversifying your business. You may have only done a certain type of business or with a certain group, but think about what changes when you do government contracting. Think about what changes when you decide to work with big companies versus smaller companies on their B2B. So we're going to look at all of those kinds of issues. Having said that, now I've explained all of the different loan programs. I've explained what the Business Recovery Accelerator is going to look like. And I am open for questions, and we'll try to respond to all of the questions. If I don't know the answers, I will tell you I don't know them, but we will work to try to get them for you. Thank you very much, and we're open for questions.
Okay, I've got a couple. With regards to the EIDL, is there any way to get an application?
The problem with, if you don't already have an EIDL application in, they haven't opened up as of this morning, they hadn't opened the portal back up. I think they're trying to work through what's in the system currently. So you'll have to be watching for when the SBA actually opens that portal back up. I understand they will open it up, but I'm not sure when that's going to happen. And it won't be open very long, simply because there's just not a lot of money that got refunded into the EIDL program.
Okay. So as of right now, the question is, I thought Congress just passed a new bill with new appropriations. Do you know anything about that, Joe?
Yes, they did. And it's $50 billion to the EIDL program, which again the portal hasn't opened up yet. And then I don't remember what the total number was now on the PPP program, but they have refunded that program. Their systems, they're having a problem right now with their software systems. They're not able to handle the big load. What happened was all of those loans that got put in the queue with the banks waiting on the PPP program, well, the banks just dumped all of those applications onto the SBA website at one time. And in some cases, they send 5,000, a number of 5,000 loans increments at one time. And the system couldn't handle the load. And so we've had some system issues. I don't want to say the system actually crashed, but it certainly has slowed down quite a bit for them to get all that processed. So the pin-up demand is really what's slowing the system down right now. But yes, that's been refunded, and to a point. And I've heard this morning that they may have to be a third round as well. So, but I don't have I can't affirm that in any way. Just conversation.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute Tanya. Got anything to mention? Hey, Tanya.
Hi, Francisca and Joe. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I just thank you for doing this for Giddings and the Economic Development Corporation. We really appreciate your taking the time and the effort to be here and to inform us. Getting this information straight from the people who are working within the system is invaluable. And so I will make sure that we carry your message forward as accurately and quickly as possible. But thank you again, both of you, for providing this opportunity for us and for all of our businesses.
No, you're quite welcome. Thank you for giving us the time to share the information. Our biggest challenge is is getting the information out, because we can't really manage it on a one-on-one basis. So we're always looking for opportunities that allow us to share with as much information with as many people as possible. And one of the things that we have really grappled with through this whole process is the guidance has changed. It started out in one direction, and it's moved, and it's been a moving target for us since day one. And I know that as of yesterday, some of what they learned in round one, they've made corrections to in round two in terms of guidance as well, primarily related to how the banks handle the process. But there has been some, and there's been an opening up of who can participate and in the PPL and that sort of thing. So again though, when these systems open up, there's so much pent-up demand that if you have not made application yet, it's going to be frustrating for you. My understanding is that the portals will open up, you will be able to make application on the EIDL program, not know when. The PPP is controlled by the banks, not through the SBA. So you'll need to, if you're having problems finding a participating bank, there are some third-party participants out there like Intuit, PayPal, and Lyft Fund. Some of those folks that have stepped up to the plate. There are smaller banks now that are trying to participate. They were sort of lessons learned from round one is a lot of the smaller banks got crowded out by the bigger banks. Well, the rules changed in round two and says the bigger banks actually can only do a certain percentage of their portfolio, which opens it up for the smaller banks to actually be able to do more as well. And this had a lot to do with where a lot of the applicants' banking relationships were with. If you didn't have a banking relationship with Bank of America or with Wells Fargo, you were really going to struggle with your local bank being eligible to participate. Well, those rules have changed now and are allowing more and more of the smaller banks to participate. So I can't hear you, Francisca.
Sorry. Hey, one question that was brought up this morning in the HR webinar that we had was one of the advisors had brought up with regards to the PPP and the funds being used for that. If an employee decides that they no longer want to come back and that money is supposed to be used for FTEs, are there any guidelines as far as that? Or is it just to fill in the 10, for instance, let's say it's 10, they're just to fill in the 10 jobs?
Right, as long as it's the number of jobs, it's not specific to it's not tied to a specific employee. It is, but it is tied to the wages and the position. So in other words, you have to have the number of jobs and the total payroll that you spent. And that can fluctuate a little bit, and actually it can fluctuate as much as 25%, but you have to be careful that in terms of how you're using the funds, if you get 75% of the total monies that you've got have to be applied to payroll. So if you let it reduce below the 75%, you run a risk of losing your guarantee, your forgiveness.
Okay. And do you have any more information on when the forgiveness, how somebody is supposed to go about doing that?
Yeah, you're gonna be able to apply for that through the bank that issued the PPP, and you'll have to, after the 8 weeks, because this is a funding for payroll for 8 weeks. At the end of the 8 weeks, you can then go to the bank that issued the PPP and apply for the forgiveness, and they may ask for that documentation. Such documentation as financial records that demonstrate that you have that you've paid the payroll. And for a sole proprietor who's filing a Schedule C on then they're going to want to see how you, either if you use the payroll service or you tracked it yourself, but you're still going to need to demonstrate that's there. If you have employees and you filed your 941s, then they're going to 941 can be proof of evidence that you met your payroll obligation. But you're going to have to be able to demonstrate that you've met the payroll requirements, and if you've met the payroll requirements, then the application for forgiveness goes through. But that'll be done with the local bank.
Okay, and would you consider, as far as the best practice, for those that are getting any type of funding, to create a separate business checking account to keep track of that?
Yeah, that's been suggested. It might be easier. It may a lot more simple to track it. It's not necessary. You just within your own accounting systems, you can set up separate tracking capabilities. But definitely need to create the budget and stick to the budget, and then track that budget through your accounting systems. But if it's easier for you to create a separate checking account, then you can certainly do that, because then you know exactly where those funds have gone, what they paid for.
Tanya? Tanya? See if I can get her. Hey, Tanya.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Do you have any specific questions that maybe some of your some of the clients or members in that area may have with regards?
Yeah, I just wanted to revisit real quick the issue of the portal being open. How are they going to know? Do they just check every morning, or is there someone they can get on a mailing list? How would they know that portal has opened? I know when the original CARES Act was passed, that a lot of our businesses that had strong relationships with banks and their investment companies sent, they received emails, but a lot of our folks are out there and they don't have that network. So how do they know?
Well, what will happen is, let me take you through the process of what's going to happen with the EIDL. If you made application with the EIDL program but you haven't received funds yet, you either haven't received your advanced funds yet, or you haven't received the EIDL funds. And in likelihood, you probably haven't received the EIDL funds. They've been trickling out really slow. But the $10,000 forgiveness piece, that's been coming out pretty regular now. It started out very slow, but it's coming out pretty regular now. What will happen, though, is that once you've made that application and you have a loan number, then you will have, you'll get contacted by a case manager from SBA, who will then talk to you about what do you do next. So even if you've already received some of that advanced loan money that's forgivable, and you think, well, wow, I still haven't heard it from the EIDL itself. Well, you will. They will reach out to you. As long as you have that, I don't know how or when, because it is a huge backlog. So they're going to work through that first before they open up the portal. And the reason for that is that they just simply don't have the capacity to add more to it until they've worked through some of it. What will happen after they have processed a good portion of that, then they will send us in advance and let us know that the portal has been opened. We usually get that notice from SBA, and several of other partners and participating partners will get that notice. So you'll get that email just like you did before that says the portal is open for application. But we're not sure when that happens, but we will post it on our website as soon as it does. If you have a problem, it should be posted on the SBA website. But if you have a problem connecting with the SBA website, then as soon as we get notice, we'll have it posted on ours that the EIDL portal is open for application. And then you can go directly to the SBA and go ahead and make that application. And it's pretty straightforward application. I mean, they really changed it down to 4 pages. Very, very simple. Now, there will be some backup documentation you'll have to provide. Your income tax, your 940s, and there's certain tax records you're going to have to provide later, but not at the time of application. But they'll be asking for those other documents and forms from the case manager as they connect with you and start moving your application through the process. So,
Yeah, and also if you follow us on social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, as soon as the portals are open, we are letting everybody know that way as well. Joe, I have a question, or maybe you can answer this. My bank said they have submitted my documents to SBA for PPP. SBA is evaluating it. What is the follow-on process?
So they put it in E-Tran. Your bank has put it in the E-Tran system, which is the tracking system for SBA. And it's been assigned a loan number. It's also been assigned a tracking number to the bank. All you can do at this point is wait. It's in the system. It'll work its way through the system. If they have any questions, they'll usually, well, first off, the SBA, this is a relationship between the SBA and the bank on a PPP side. So if the SBA has any issues, they'll communicate that to the bank, and they can do that through their systems, their automated systems. And then if the bank needs to provide any other supporting documentation, they will. But you're in the system now. The only thing it's hard to do, but the only thing you have left to do now is to wait.
Okay. Tanya, do you have anything else to add or any other questions?
No, I don't think so. I did come in a few minutes late. I was on the phone with the client, so I don't want to take up a lot of time, going over things you've probably already asked. I think Joe's pretty comprehensive in his overview. So I think the big question that some people had, was how much of this process right now is trying to get applications that were already in the queue through versus taking on new applications. I think that was one question we kept getting asked. And then the other was which programs run through the banks and which run directly through the SBA. It was a little bit difficult for some people to wade through that difference. So you've done a good job, I think, of answering both of those questions. If you want to recap any of that, that would be helpful. But I think that, that I got the information I needed to take back to clients.
Yeah, the only loan application that goes directly through the SBA is the EIDL, and which also includes the EIDL advanced loan. Those two go directly through the SBA. Everything else works through a bank, our community development financial institution, or a local community loan program.
Okay, I've got another question. I am self-employed as a natural health coach. Do I qualify for the EIDL?
No, you only qualify for the PPP.
Joe, this is Tanya again. We do not have a CDFI in Giddings, but I know there are some in Austin. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about those organizations and how someone from our community might access one?
Sure. Well, actually, all of them in the state of Texas cover the entire state of Texas, and like Lift Fund, they actually cover 5 states. So they may not be physically located in your community, but they do represent your community. People Fund is a statewide CDFI, and they have a loan program, a gap loan program now that goes for up to about $60,000, I think. And they have designed their program around using all of the same qualifying information as an SBA, as the EIDL and the PPP, primarily the PPP qualifications, so that they can make an easy transition where they can take themselves out once the PPP has been awarded. And Lift Fund and Axion, all of those are local. They have local offices in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, but they do represent your community. So it's, you should be able, Francisca, I don't know if we have their data on our website, but we probably should put it on our website. If not, I think we do because they're partners of ours, but if not, when you look on our website under our partner list, they should be there. But if not, we'll make sure that we get it there for you, and so you know exactly how to connect with them. The other thing too is they are helping with the PPP applications and EIDL and PPP applications. They have been helping clients with as well. Just the application part, not necessarily that they would make any of the loans. That still has to come from the same groups. But and then I do know the city of Austin has stood up a working capital loan, and I have heard that some of the other larger economic development organizations have begun that process as well, and some communities have begun to do that as well. But where they're getting their funds from, that sort of thing, to actually fund that, I'm not sure. And you have to be really careful, because if they're drawing their funds from another federal source, you can't use one federal loan program to buy out another federal loan program. So that could create some issues. So if they're using federal funds to create the gap loan, then it's really not a gap loan, because it won't be eligible to be taken out once the main loan has been approved. So just need to keep some of those things in mind as you go.
Okay, I got a couple more questions. The first one I have not, but are you aware of an automated number that calls you to help with the EIDL loan?
I'm aware that there have been some, but they're not authorized.
And then is the PPP fund now open?
Yes.
Open now, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, but it's not.
Yeah, it opened at, I think it was 10:30 yesterday morning. The challenge has been, again, is that once it opened, they flooded it with applications, and it's gotten very slow. So you could find yourself very frustrated in trying to make application.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions for Joe? Tanya, anything else?
No, I think I'm good. You know, we're just, I know it's a lot and it's changing, so we're just trying to keep up, but I appreciate those links that people find in City of Austin, and I will get those on our Facebook group. We have a special group, Giddings Economic Development COVID-19 Business Center, and it's tangent to our normal Facebook group, but I've been pretty much occupying that 12, 14 hours a day just to get information on there and answer questions. So you'll help me be able to be better prepared to do that. But I'll make sure that those links get on there. And just, Joe, since you're aware, so that you're aware, we do have our organization has been providing grants for our local businesses that experienced a forced closure or a forced reduction in operating hours. So it's a grant, not a loan, but we're looking at in the future being able to provide loans for people in order to leverage the few dollars that we have.
Hey, excuse me, ma'am, I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, what city are you in? I'm in Illinois.
Oh, I'm in the city of Giddings, Texas.
Right. So is there another sister or parallel organization like yours that give grants? Because we are a small business, and to be honest and quite frank, we've been, shut out the process. We tried to get the EIDL loan in, and like day one, and we couldn't get on, and we continuously tried, and so.
Yeah, have you checked the state of Illinois website? Because my understanding with the state of Illinois is they have quite a few small business grant programs. If you, Joe, I don't want to hijack your webinar, but if you were to, send to me your email address, my email is edcdirector@giddings.net, or go on our Facebook page, Giddings Economic Development Corporation. You can just do search for Giddings, Texas, and PM me. I can send to you the links to the state of Illinois small business grant programs, but your state has quite a few grant programs that are designed for small business, and whether you would meet those qualifications or not, I'm not as familiar with the details, but I would suspect that in many of your cities, you also have economic development corporations or organizations. And Joe, you may be able to speak more to that national level.
Yeah, the SBDCs we have over 1,100 field centers like the one here in Austin that covers, so every part of the United States is covered by an SBDC. That SBDC in Illinois will have all of that information, will be aware of all of that information related to you there in Illinois. They're familiar with we're all familiar with what's going on in our individual markets, and so you should be able. I don't know if you've reached out to the SBDC there or not, but you should be able to. If you go to America's Small Business Development Center, they will be able to provide you the center that is tied to your zip code, and then from there you can contact that SBDC, and that SBDC should be able to provide you with the information you're asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Was that Ms. Britton talking before that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I think, Francisca, if you look in the group chat, she has posted both the Giddings EDC's website. I have a form there. You can go straight to that. And then the contact information for the Illinois Small Business Development Center. Are you able to find the Zoom group chat section?
Yeah, I'm looking at some links now.
Okay.
You know, I was just saying that like organizations like myself and others, I'm sure are ready, but the portal's not open. And
right. Well, now the PPP, you have to go to the bank for that one. You can't. There's not going to be a portal open for the PPP. Only the IO.
Yes, we've already done that application.
Okay, perfect.
But I was saying that, you know, we check the EIDL, the SBA EIDL every day, and like first thing in the morning, and
mm-hmm.
I saw that error message saying that the funds haven't been appropriated. But as I was saying, I thought that Congress had approved it. So I know that it's a slow process, but we don't want to lose our place in line again. So
no, I totally agree, totally understand. And yeah, but I was told yesterday, I checked in on it yesterday, late yesterday afternoon actually, and the portal had not been open, and the explanation was that they're still, that everything is in the pipeline. It's kind of choking them down at the moment, so they're trying to get that pushed out before they actually open the portal to take on more applications. So it's not that it's not going to open. My understanding is that they're processing what was actually kind of caught up in the queue already in process, and they're trying to get those processed first, and then they'll open it up for additional.
But there will be, hopefully, those additional funds will filter out, because I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's not my my expertise, but I'm assuming that first round of funding, with all of the applicants that already had their applications in, that money goes to them. And with the new people that submitting their applications, this new round will go to us.
Yeah. If you had a loan number when they closed the portal, if you had already had a loan number, then they were going to then the money, you had that money out of the first round.
Got it.
If you didn't have a loan number, then all of that application is coming out of the second round.
Okay, so we didn't have a loan number the first round.
Right.
Okay. Very informative, and thank you guys. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to say thank you earlier. My child wouldn't let me. So I just put my child to sleep, and I was like, let me unmute it now.
No,
so you know, thank you, and
well, thank you all. I appreciate you, everyone, giving me the opportunity to speak today. If you have any questions, would you email, go on our website and send us email the questions, and we'll do our best to try to answer questions if you think of something later.
Hey Joe, hold on 1 second. We have one more. In regards to PPP, is there a bank or a lender you can recommend? I currently only bank with RBFCU, and they are no longer accepting applications aside from PayPal.
Wow. Yeah. Then there are some. Well, the the third-party lenders are out there. So she said she couldn't get PayPal to respond.
She said so with regards to RBFCU, they're no longer accepting applications aside from PayPal. So as far as third parties.
Third parties are taking the applications. Yeah, certain banks have reached their limits of what their capacity they can manage, and that's where they're stopping.
Do you know of any, I know we've had discussions about this. Do you know of any that the advisors mentioned are still accepting?
Well, I know that Intuit was still taking applications as of yesterday. I don't know what the current, who's taking applications currently today.
Okay.
And that's been the challenge, is keeping up with. I mean, we would have to call every lender to find out who's open, who's not.
Yeah.
So just keep working the list. But I think the third-party lenders are much easier to work with at this point than traditional banks.
Yeah, the only thing I can suggest as far as finding a banker or lender, on the SBA website, you can actually search by zip code, and then it'll pull up a list of who are approved PPP lenders. Now, if they're still accepting it, you would have to call the bank and find that out.
Now, you may get some help from like People Fund or Lift Fund. They may know who's actually taking those applications as well, because they're actually, all of the deals they're trying to do, they're trying to push out to, that they're doing the PP, they're helping with the PPP applications so that they can get their gap funding taken out at the disbursement of the loan. And so they may know who is still active as well. So it wouldn't hurt to give them a call.
Okay, and then another one, I'm not sure, I have a loan number but cannot follow up with EIDL. Are you needing to get in touch with the SBA regarding your loan? I'm not sure what your question.
If she has a loan number, the SBA case manager will call them. Okay, so there's nothing else they can do at this. Oh, you can call, but you're likely not going to get through, and because it's just it's really tough at not having the capacity to manage the workload for them to be that responsive. But if you've got a loan number, you're in the queue. They're working. A case manager will eventually call you. So just and for some of those who may have already heard from a case manager or not, some of these loans, you're not going to get a notification that the loan has been approved. What you're going to find all of a sudden is there's going to be a big chunk of money in your bank account. So watch your bank account. Once you've been given a loan number, just keep an eye on your bank account and wait for a case manager. But one of the two are going to get your attention.
Okay, I think that may be it, unless we have any other questions. Then we can go ahead and close it up. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to visit our website.
I'm sorry, I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to type it, but I typed slow. So when I do the next round of EIDL application, can I use my business account for that?
Sure.
Okay, because I was just checking because I heard that you can use your personal to I think I heard somebody say to use a separate account possibly.
Yeah, but you want to be careful about using personal accounts. I don't recommend using personal accounts to conduct any business with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't hardly hear that question, so I didn't see the transcript to go back and see if somebody answered it. So
it's not required that you have a separate checking account. I just said that it was suggested that it might be easier, and I agreed that it might be easier to do that. But
and
you can certainly do that within your own program, your own accounting systems. Your business accounting systems can be identified and tracked within the systems you have.
Okay.
And I would prefer to do that just because I have all of the information in one place.
Yes.
But I can understand how it could be easier, but I would not recommend anything related to a personal account.
Yes, sir. I was just checking. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close it up. Again, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to visit our website, shoot us an email, and then I will get with Joe to get answers to your questions. All right, I think that's it, Joe.
Thank you all very much. Y'all have a great day.